It all started in high school. I was a naive, shy, and awkward 14-year-old when I asked this one guy to our school's Sadie Hawkins dance. I knew him from a mutual friend of ours, but we really didn't talk. All I knew was that we both liked anime and manga, and that he was kind of quiet, most of the time. So I wanted to be nice, and I asked him out to the dance. That was mistake number 1 that started the years of torment. He said yes, and we agreed that we would just meet at the dance with the rest of our friends. A few hours later, I get a message on Facebook from him, and it's a long message, telling me that he always had a crush on me, that I was beautiful, and that he couldn't compare my beauty to anything else, because he considered that an insult to how beautiful I was. It was pretty cringy, but at the end of it, he asked if I would like to be his girlfriend. I was uncomfortable after reading the entire message, but again, being the shy and awkward 14-year-old that I was, I told him yes. Mistake number 2. He was ecstatic. He asked to call me that night and asked for my phone number, and I gave it to him. Mistake number 3. He calls me later that night, and I learned a lot of things that I didn't want to know. One of the major things was that this guy was a massive crybaby. I'm not trying to say that men who cry are weak, but this guy would cry at everything and would always play the victim. Felt like all of his friends didn't like him? Cry. No girl other than me would love him? Cry. Teacher failed all of his assignments, even though he openly admitted he didn't want to do any of the work? Cry. The list goes on, but I'll get to more things later. I also learned that night that he had a foot fetish, and now that I was his girlfriend, he was going to do so many things to my feet. Again, not trying to shame anyone, but as a 14-year-old who didn't like showing off any part of my body, I was uncomfortable. And when I went silent for a little bit, guess what he did? Cry. Because I thought he was a freak. His words, not mine. I told him, no, I didn't think that, though I was starting to. He instantly cheered up. He continued to call me every night, and the conversations were usually the same as the first night. He called until the night of the dance. At the dance, he mentioned he never had his first kiss, and how sad it was. I had already had my first kiss at this point, and I'm so glad he wasn't it. I kissed him at the dance just to get it over with. However, through the night, he would try to kiss me even more, and even tried shoving his tongue in my mouth. It got so bad that a teacher had to pull us apart. Of course, he goes off to sulk and cry. After the dance, I got a text from him saying how magical I made the night for him, and that the kiss was delicious, not exaggerating, and how the stupid teacher didn't understand our love, again, not exaggerating. I was feeling pretty sick to my stomach at this point, and wanted to break up with this guy, but I stayed a little bit longer. Mistake number 4. 2 days later, he asked me out on a date to the movies. Stupidly, I said yes, and he asked if one of his best friends could come, and if I could bring one of my best friends since his friend found her attractive, and wanted her to be his girlfriend. I told both of them no, because he wasn't her type, and in all honesty, she hated him. They kept pushing me to bring her, but I kept telling them no. His best friend calls me killjoy cunt, and he did his usual thing of crying because he didn't get what he wanted. We go to the Lorax that night, and his friend sits behind us. The second the lights go out, he turns my head and starts kissing me and pushing his tongue into my mouth. I tried to push him away because I was not going to let him do that to me the entire movie. Again, his friend is right behind us, and he keeps trying to kiss me. Movie ends, and when I get home, he sends me a text saying he was depressed and a picture of my feet would make him feel better. I told him no, and he threatened to kill himself, and it would be all my fault because I didn't send him a photo. Horrified at how fast he snapped, I sent him a photo. The next night, he asked if I had been naughty lately. Knowing where this was leading to, I told him no. He then started crying about how I was cheating on him and that I had been naughty with other people, and again he threatened to kill himself. I tried to calm him down by telling him that I was a virgin and was not a sexual person at all. He suddenly, as if on a dime, stopped his fit and asked me if we could just completely forget about what happened. I tried telling him that what he did was incredibly inappropriate and was about to tell him to leave me alone, but he pulls the victim card again and starts crying. During the crying, he asked for another picture of my feet to calm him down. Scared he was going to snap again, I sent him another picture. This continued for a few more days. He would try and message me whenever I was busy, at school, babysitting, volunteer work, etc. He would accuse me of cheating, tell him what's going on, him saying sorry, play the victim, and asking for pictures of my feet to calm him down. I eventually had enough, and after 2 weeks of dating him, broke off the relationship. He cried, of course, and begged that we at least stay friends. The school year was ending, and he said he was transferring to a new school, so I figured I would never see him again. Wrong. Beginning of the school year, he would message me, and when I didn't respond, he would cry and threaten to kill himself. After a while, I just started to ignore the messages and threatened to call the police if he didn't stop messaging me. Thought he would have stopped after that, right? wrong. Every year up until I turned 21, he would message me random things at random times. Examples like, "Hey, my friend, we're friends, right? Can you send me a pic of your feet? I miss you. I'll leave you alone if you want me to." I'm pathetic, aren't I? And so much more each time. I ignored him and finally blocked him on every platform he tried to contact me on. Fast forward to 21. I'm in college a ways away from my town and from him, and have a boyfriend. I get a notification from Instagram saying he started following my profile. I quickly block him, and not even 5 minutes later, I get a message from Facebook from a random profile I didn't know. The message read, "Why did you block me on Instagram?" I lost it. I sent him a long message telling him if he contacted me in any way, shape, or form, I would get a restraining order, and told him how damaging it would be to his reputation and his future career. Again, he played the victim, and told me that he couldn't believe he fell for a liberal bitch like me, and never contact him again. Never heard from him again, and good riddance. A few months later, I get a message from a girl who used to date him as well. She told me he used to threaten to kill himself and cry if she told him she would ever leave him. I was at the local grocery store I visit weekly to shop for food. I normally spend $100 to $200 a week on food for myself and my family, so I always leave with a full cart. I'm standing in the checkout line, minding my business, when a tall man, I guess early 40s, approached me and complimented my hair. "Your hair is gorgeous," loud enough for everyone within a 20-foot radius to hear. Now I appreciate a compliment as much as the next girl, but it was a little obnoxious to say the least. I thanked him politely and redirected my attention to my cart, where I awkwardly started organizing the items in hopes that the 15 pairs of eyes now staring in my direction would look elsewhere. Unfortunately, Loudmouth didn't take the hint. He started asking rapid-fire questions and statements, barely pausing for me to give a word in edgewise before the next sentence would spill out of his mouth. This is when it started to get really awkward, as if it wasn't weird enough. He asked if I wanted to go out with him sometime, maybe tonight after I put my groceries away. He could come to my house and help me put groceries away, and then we could leave from there. I told him I didn't think my husband would appreciate that, and he got angry. I was freaked out at that point, and everyone was still staring. After I rejected his offer, his mood changed so fast it was like a light switch got flipped, and the compliments turned to nasty insults and curses. Mind you, this guy didn't have a cart, or anything in his hand to buy. He was kinda standing off to the side, kinda leaning on one of the drink refrigerator displays. Thankfully, a gentleman who was in the aisle within my sight, who presumably heard the whole thing, came up from behind us and asked him if he was in line. Loudmouth said no, and the gentleman promptly told him that he was being inappropriate, loud, and needed to buzz off. To my surprise, Loudmouth stepped aside with one final insult and stomped out of the store. I thanked the gentleman, and we continued waiting in line, me with an entire week's worth of groceries and him with a bottle of Gatorade. I offered to let him go in front of me, and he declined, saying he wasn't in a rush. It was really like one of those scenes in a movie where the nice tough guy saves the girl from the jackass. Even so, I was afraid Loudmouth would be waiting outside, so I asked the cashier to call one of her coworkers to walk me to my car. The gentleman insisted that he would be happy to escort me to my car, and I accepted. But as I stood there watching the cashier ring my items, I was overcome with this sick feeling, like I was gonna vomit everywhere. I decided it was just my nerves, as I have issues with anxiety, and this reaction is pretty normal. It typically passes within a few minutes once I mentally talk myself down. But for fear of further embarrassment, this time in the form of projectile vomiting in the middle of a grocery store, I hurriedly paid and took a seat on the bench close by. I told the gentleman never mind, and that I was a little freaked out, so I was gonna call my husband to come pick me up instead. We'd get the car later, I didn't care, I just wanted to make it home in one piece. He told me to have a nice day, and walked out the door. Hand to God, as soon as he walked out of the building, I felt normal again. So, still blaming my anxiety, I felt sorta silly, but I'd already called my husband, so I stood up and pushed my cart over to the window to watch for my ride just in time to see a junky, white SUV drive by with, freaking wait for it, gentleman in the passenger seat, and Loudmouth in the driver's seat. I about shit myself. I, a 25-year-old female, have been living in Japan for a few years now, and one thing I have quite often are stalker encounters. It seems that in my area, or anywhere that isn't a big city now that I think about it, Japanese men come to be quite obsessed with foreign women, especially fair-skinned, blonde-haired, blue-eyed foreign women such as myself. I've dealt with quite a few situations where I was sure I would be kidnapped. One such encounter back in 2013, when I was in my third year of university, The following was a very brief encounter, but a terrifying one nonetheless. I was studying abroad at a school in Saitama, making a lot of friends and having the time of my life. I joined the a cappella club and had a group that I sang with. Together there were 5 of us. They were all men, which made me uncomfortable at first, but we blended well together, and they felt more comfortable singing English songs with me there to help with pronunciation and whatnot. One day after practice was finished, my group invited me to go shopping with them at a local supermarket to get things for a nabe party. For those who don't know, a nabe is basically a hot pot. You get a bunch of veggies and meat, and you put it in a big pot on a little portable gas burner, and everyone gathers around and eats together. It's a huge part of Japanese culture, and a great way to hang out with friends. I was ecstatic that they invited me. I was usually left out of these kinds of things at first, because I was an outsider, whereas they'd known each other since their freshman year. Over the few months that we'd been singing together, though, they'd grown to be like a family to me, each one like an overprotective big brother. Especially a guy named Kosuke. He was tall and a bit on the heavy side, but he was extremely charismatic. Whenever he saw me fumbling around, nervous or confused, he'd quickly appear by my side and throw a heavy arm around my shoulder, practically knocking me over while asking, "What's the problem, Tane-chan?" Anyway, the nabe party. We all went to our friend's house for the party and ended up drinking and talking until pretty late. When my phone in my pocket vibrated to tell me I had a low battery, I finally saw the time and realized it was already 4 a.m. The guys were getting ready to nap until the train started back up, but I was only a 30-minute walk away from my share house. I announced that I was leaving and started packing my stuff up. Kosuke offered to walk me home, but I told him that I was fine. The sun would be rising soon, Japan has an early sunrise, and it really wasn't far. The cold would kill me before the walk did, I joked. They reluctantly agreed and saw me off, demanding I call them if anything happened. I made it to the station safely, marking the halfway point home. I descended the stairs to see a single car parked outside with a man leaning up against it, staring straight at me. It wasn't anyone I knew. He was older than me, in his mid-30s, maybe early 40s. His head turned, watching me as I walked down the stairs. Feeling uncomfortable with the unwanted attention, I rushed my pace a little, rubbing my hands together to fight the sudden chill that overcame me, though I was pretty sure it had nothing to do with the cold. I crossed to the other side of the street, avoiding him as best I could. I avoided looking at him as well, but I heard the car door slam, and the engine start up. Headlights illuminated me, and he turned to drive alongside where I was walking, his window rolled down. "Hey," he said in Japanese. "Are you alone?" I said nothing. "Where are you going? Do you speak Japanese?" I quickened my pace. "You're pretty, let's hang out." I began power walking. The sluggish tiredness from the party was quickly being replaced with adrenaline. He pulled ahead, and I thought he gave up, but his car stopped not far ahead, and he put it in park, getting out. "Let's go home together." He was standing about 10 feet ahead of me. I stopped, so I wasn't walking closer to him. "Let's go home together," he repeated a little more forcefully, stepping towards me. "Get in my car." I didn't have much time to think. I immediately turned left and sprinted into the park. There were only 4 entrances, all of which a car could not enter. It was a traditional Japanese-style garden with tall bamboo trees and a pond of koi surrounded by a gazebo in the middle. The man was in a no-parking zone, so he wouldn't leave his car alone. I heard him curse under his breath and jump back into his car. I pulled out my phone, immediately calling Kosuke. Just my luck, though, he didn't answer. I tried the rest of my group, no one answered. I looked at the next exit just in time to see his car crawl by slowly, his head sticking out the window searching for me as I hid behind a grove of bamboo. Trembling in fear, I tried again and again with no success to reach the guys. I looked repeatedly at my 4 exits, always seeing him crawl by. He was circling the park, waiting for me to walk out so he could talk to me again, though I had a feeling talking wasn't really what he wanted to do. Just as I was about to cry, my phone lit up dimly with a phone call from Kosuke. "What's the problem, Tane-chan?" he said jokingly. The other guys in the background were still joking around. In a rush of breath, I explained to him my current predicament. Though he didn't say a word the entire time, I could practically hear the smile leave his face. The rest of the group had quieted too, and I heard one say, "What's going on? Is she okay?" He told me to stay where I was, and that he was on his way. But I was already 20 minutes away, and I wasn't sure that I had 20 minutes before the guy parked his car and came into the park to find me. I looked behind me again just in time to see him drive by that exit slowly looking through. That's it. I'm cold, I'm tired, I'm scared. I want to go home. I'm going to run after he passes the next exit and turns the corner, I explained. "No," he said, "wait for me. I can run and be there soon." But Kosuke wasn't a runner. I didn't think he could get there any faster than I could. He started to say something more, but my phone suddenly went dark. Dead battery. No turning back now. I waited a few seconds, and there he was, right on schedule. He crawled by the exit, then stopped. My heart was pounding so hard I'm sure he could hear it, but he looked hard and slowly around. The sun was starting to come up now, and he had a better view. It really was now or never. He slowly moved forward. I crept out of my hiding spot and moved towards the exit. I poked my head out and saw him turn the corner. I sprinted towards my house and didn't look back. I was too scared to. I don't know if he saw me, and I was too fast to follow or what, but I didn't ever see the guy again. I immediately put my phone on the charger and called the guys back to let them know I was okay, but Kosuke never let me walk home alone in the dark again.